The quantum laboratory died in a symphony of shattering glass and electrical destruction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez knew something was catastrophically wrong the moment the containment field began to oscillate with impossible frequency. Her life's work, a quantum displacement theory that promised to revolutionize interdimensional communication, was collapsing around her in a maelstrom of pure, unbridled energy. Containment breach, she screamed, her voice nearly lost in the thunderous roar of collapsing machinery. Her research team had already evacuated moments earlier, leaving her alone with the experimental quantum resonance array. Protocol dictated immediate evacuation, but Elena Rodriguez had never been one to follow protocols when scientific breakthrough hung in the balance. The medallion around her neck, a prototype quantum entanglement device she'd secretly been developing, began to pulse with an angry, electric blue light. It was supposed to be a passive receptor, a theoretical communication bridge between dimensional planes. Now it seemed to be absorbing the catastrophic energy discharge, drawing the quantum instability into itself like a voracious predator. Elena's muscles locked. Time itself seemed to stretch and compress, each microsecond an eternity of searing pain and impossible sensation. She washed her hands, no, her entire body, begin to deconstruct at the molecular level. Quantum strings unraveled, reality itself tearing apart around her. Then, sudden silence. Darkness. Then, pain. Sharp, cutting pain that told her she was alive. Elena's eyes snapped open to a landscape that defied every principle of terrestrial existence. The ground beneath her was not ground at all, but a shifting, obsidian-like surface that seemed to breathe and pulse with an alien consciousness. Gravity pulled at her from impossible angles, and the atmosphere burned her lungs with each desperate breath. Towering figures moved around her. They were not creatures in any biological sense she understood. Biomechanical nightmares that clicked and hummed, segmented limbs bristling with organic weaponry that seemed to pulse with sentient malevolence. Translators mounted on their exoskeletons crackled to life, producing a sound that was simultaneously speech and visceral threat. Biomass detected. Quantum signature. Unknown. Threat assessment initiated. Elena's mind raced. Her quantum displacement theory had always suggested the possibility of transdimensional transfer, but this was beyond anything she'd ever conceptualized. These weren't just alien life forms. They were a completely different order of existence. The nearest creature, a massive construct of chitin, metal, and what appeared to be living circuitry, extended a limb that was simultaneously a sensor array and a weapon. Nerve-threading tendrils extended, preparing to analyze, to consume, to destroy. Insignificant biomass detected. The translator note announced. Preparation for harvesting commences. A laugh bubbled up from Elena's throat. Not a laugh of hysteria, but of pure scientific excitement. These creatures, for all their technological superiority, had no idea what they were dealing with. Her hand touched the quantum medallion. It was still warm, still pulsing with potential. They thought she was prey. They were wrong. And her hunt was about to begin. Survival was a mathematical equation with constantly shifting variables. Elena learned this truth within hours of her arrival in this nightmare realm. The atmosphere alone was a killing field. Each breath felt like inhaling microscopic razor blades that threatened to shred her lungs from the inside. Her quantum medallion became her only consistent ally. When she discovered it could generate a localized quantum field that marginally stabilized the toxic atmosphere around her, Elena knew her scientific background was more than just academic knowledge. It was her lifeline. The first night brought revelations that would have driven a lesser mind to madness. Gravity fluctuated like a sadistic metronome, sometimes pressing her into the obsidian ground with crushing force, other times threatening to tear her apart as it momentarily reduced to near zero. She quickly fashioned a makeshift stabilization harness from the crystalline debris left behind by Krelnak hunting parties, fragments of exoskeletons that seemed to retain quantum reactive properties. Scavenging became an art form of scientific precision. Each discarded piece of biomechanical technology was a puzzle to be solved, a potential tool for survival. Alina's hands, once pristine laboratory instruments, now became roughened tools of adaptation. She dismantled alien communication nodes, understanding their quantum entanglement principles faster than the creatures could comprehend. On the third day, true danger revealed itself. A massive predator-class hunter cornered her in a narrow canyon of metallic rock formations. The creature defied biological classification, a living weapon that was part organic, part mechanical, all hunger. Its multiple sensory appendages mapped her position, quantum-enhanced tracking systems eliminating any possibility of escape. Alina's mind raced. Traditional survival tactics meant certain death. This was a realm where weakness was immediately punished, where the concept of mercy was as alien as her own presence. She had been preparing for this moment since her arrival. The jury-rigged quantum disruptor, a device cobbled together from scavenged biomechanical components, hung from her makeshift utility belt. It was a desperate gamble, a scientific hypothesis transformed into a weapon of survival. As the predator closed in, its massive form blocking out the realm's perpetually shifting light, Alina activated the device. She understood quantum mechanics at a level these creatures could never comprehend. It wasn't just about destroying. It was about manipulating fundamental interactions. A localized gravitational anomaly erupted. The predator's own massive weight became its ultimate destruction. Quantum fields warped, gravity inverted, and the massive hunter began to crush itself. Bones, if they could be called bones, splintered. Mechanical components imploded. The creature's own mass became a singularity of self-destruction. When silence returned, Alina stood surrounded by the crystalline remains of her would-be killer. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning to thrive. The quantum medallion pulsed against her chest, a silent testament to the scientific mind that refused to be conquered. Her real work was just beginning. The Krellnak believed their technological supremacy was absolute. Her biomechanical networks pulsed with quantum-entangled communication systems that had subjugated entire civilizations. They never anticipated a lone human would become their most devastating vulnerability. Alina's makeshift laboratory occupied a hidden cavern deep within the realm's crystalline underground. Walls lined with dismantled communication nodes, quantum resonance analyzers cobbled together from alien tech, and intricate diagrams mapping the Krellnak's technological infrastructure told the story of her relentless study. Each day was a calculated assault on their systems. Her first breakthrough came from understanding their communication network's fundamental weakness. The Krellnak's quantum entanglement communication relied on a complex but predictable resonance pattern. To them, it was an unbreakable system of instantaneous information transfer. To Alina, it was just another complex system waiting to be exploited. She began with microscopic interventions. Quantum destabilization algorithms introduced so subtly that they appeared as random system glitches. A communication relay would momentarily fail. A targeting system would experience a millisecond of incorrect calibration. Nothing significant enough to trigger a full investigation, but enough to create doubt. On the 20th day of her covert warfare, Alina engineered her first major disruption. A massive data transmission hub became her primary target. The structure was a marvel of biomechanical engineering, a living network that pulsed with billions of quantum-entangled communication streams. Mounted high on a crystalline spire, it represented the central nervous system of the Krellnak's technological dominance. Her approach was surgical. Using a device she constructed from scavenged quantum resonance receptors and alien communication nodes, Alina began to introduce a cascading quantum interference pattern. It was mathematical warfare, each algorithm designed to create progressive system instability without immediate detection. The first signs of success came unexpectedly. A hunting collective suddenly found its targeting systems compromised. Communication channels began to produce conflicting coordinates. What should have been a perfectly synchronized attack became a chaotic mess of miscommunication. Then came the moment of true victory. A squad of biomechanically enhanced hunters cornered her in the massive transmission hub. Their weapons charged, translation nodes crackling with predatory intent. Elena stood calm, her hand resting on the quantum disruptor she'd been carefully preparing. Biomass targeted. Elimination protocol initiated, their translator nodes announced. She smiled. The electromagnetic pulse she released was unlike anything in their technological understanding. Crafted from a deep understanding of quantum mechanics and the Krellnak's own communication principles, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a systemic cancer that would spread through their entire network. An entire hunting collective went dark. Communication networks collapsed. For the first time, the Krellnak experienced true technological blindness. They had treated her as prey. She was proving to be something far more dangerous. A technological predator was born. Chaos became Elena's most potent weapon. The underground resistance networks whispered about her. A phantom disruptor moving through the realm's shadowy ecosystems. To the oppressed species long crushed beneath the Krellnak's technological heel, she was becoming something between a myth and a strategic hope. Her manipulation of the quantum communication networks wasn't just about survival anymore. It was a calculated dismantling of an entire oppressive civilization. Each intervention was a precision strike, turning Krellnak hunting collectives against each other with surgical accuracy. The first major confrontation came unexpectedly. A high-ranking Krellnak commander tracked her to a crystalline network junction, a location that served as a critical communication nexus. His biomechanical form towered 15 feet tall, a living weapon of organic circuitry and quantum-enhanced weaponry. Nerve-threading tendrils extended from multiple sensory points, each capable of parsing molecular-level information. Unidentified biomass. The commander's translation node crackled. Prepare for comprehensive biosystem analysis and termination. Elena's response was a holographic projection that would change everything. Using the quantum medallion and her jury-rigged communication systems, she broadcast a comprehensive simulation of the Krellnak's societal collapse. It wasn't just a prediction. It was a mathematically precise projection of their civilization's fundamental vulnerabilities. The hologram showed their communication networks fragmenting, their hunting collectives turning on each other, their entire hierarchical structure dissolving from within. The commander's biomechanical limbs trembled, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Fear. Surrounding the hidden junction, Elena had already prepared her next move. Indigenous species long considered nothing more than resource pools began to mobilize. A silicon-based lifeform named Krixtar, whom she had first contacted and strategically prepared, led a coordinated disruption of local Krellnak control systems. Small resistance cells, previously isolated and crushed under the Krellnak's technological dominance, now moved with unprecedented coordination. Elena had given them more than just hope. She had provided them with a systematic approach to resistance. Communication networks began to fracture. Hunting collectives that had operated with machine-like precision for generations suddenly found themselves fighting internal battles. Quantum communication channels became battlegrounds of misinformation and strategic confusion. The commander lunged, his biomechanical form a blur of lethal potential. Elena didn't run. Instead, she activated a quantum resonance disruptor, a device that would have been impossible to construct just weeks earlier. The resulting quantum cascade didn't just stop the commander. It began to systematically deconstruct the very technological infrastructure that made his existence possible. "You are not prey," Elena spoke, her voice cutting through the commander's failing translation systems. "You are about to become the catalyst of your own transformation." As the commander collapsed, surrounded by the first true rebellion this realm had ever witnessed, Elena understood something profound. This was no longer just about her survival. This was about rewriting the fundamental rules of an entire civilization. The rebellion had begun. Survival was no longer enough. Revolution required understanding. The silicon-based lifeform, known as Krixtar, represented everything the Krellnak considered inferior, a resource to be harvested, not a sentient being to be negotiated with. Its crystalline structure shifted continuously, a living matrix of computational potential that had been systematically oppressed for generations. Alina's first true communication with Krikstar happened in a subterranean network junction, surrounded by the remnants of disabled Krellnack communication arrays. Her quantum medallion acted as a universal translator, breaking through biological and technological barriers that had seemed insurmountable moments before. "You are not just a system to be decoded," Alina spoke, her hands carefully manipulating a quantum resonance device. "You are a potential partner in a larger transformation." Krikstar's response came in pulses of quantum-encoded information, a language that was simultaneously mathematical equation, emotional expression, and strategic communication. The silicon-based being had been waiting, not just for liberation, but for someone who could truly understand the depth of its potential. Their first collaborative project was nothing short of revolutionary. Alina's understanding of quantum mechanics merged with Krikstar's innate ability to process complex informational matrices. Together, they developed a communication protocol that could bridge seemingly incompatible biological communication systems. It wasn't just a translation device, it was a universal understanding engine. Other oppressed species began to take notice. The Vexnera, energy-based life forms previously considered nothing more than environmental anomalies, approached with cautious interest. The Marine, a collective consciousness trapped in a perpetual state of technological subjugation, sent their first diplomatic tendrils. Each species brought a unique perspective, a fragment of resistance that Alina helped transform into a cohesive strategy. The underground resistance was no longer a collection of isolated cells. It was becoming a living, breathing network of strategic potential. Her method was elegant in its complexity. Where the Krellnack saw dominance through technological suppression, Alina introduced a concept far more dangerous: collaborative innovation. Each species was not just a potential weapon, but a unique problem-solving entity. The Vexnera provided advanced energy manipulation techniques. The Marine contributed their collective computational abilities. Krikstar's quantum adaptive matrix became the communication backbone of this emerging alliance. And at the center of it all was Alina, a human who had been condemned to this realm, now becoming its most unexpected architect. A high-ranking resistance strategist, a methane-breathing entity from the realm's toxic atmospheric regions, approached her with a critical piece of intelligence. The Krellnack were preparing a massive purge of what they considered inferior biological systems. Alina's response was a quantum-encoded battle plan that would change everything. "We are not waiting to be saved," she told the assembled resistance leaders. "We are going to rewrite the fundamental rules of survival." The alliance trembled with potential. The real war was about to begin. The moment of revolution arrived not with a thunderous battle, but with a quantum whisper. Alina's masterpiece was a governance protocol that would fundamentally rewrite the realm's entire existential framework. Mounted within a massive crystalline network hub, her quantum entanglement device represented the culmination of weeks of meticulous preparation, countless failed prototypes, and an understanding of complex systems that transcended traditional scientific boundaries. Krikstar's silicon-based matrix served as the primary computational backbone. The Vexnera's energy manipulation techniques provided the power distribution network. Marine's collective consciousness offered real-time adaptive learning capabilities. And at the center of it all was Alina's revolutionary algorithm, a piece of computational genius that was part mathematical equation, part philosophical manifesto. "This isn't just about replacing one system of control," she explained to her assembled resistance leaders. "This is about creating a living, adaptive network of mutual survival." The device looked deceptively simple, a crystalline core no larger than a human fist, pulsing with quantum-encoded potential. But its implications were world-shattering. As she initiated the protocol, the realm itself seemed to hold its breath. Quantum entanglement cascaded through communication networks that had previously been rigid hierarchical structures. Suddenly, species that had been isolated for generations found themselves connected in ways they could never have imagined. Information flowed not as a controlled stream, but as a living, adaptive ecosystem of knowledge. The Krelnak's first response was predictable: total technological warfare. Entire communication arrays charged with destructive potential, targeting the source of the quantum disruption. But Alina had anticipated this. Each attack was absorbed, redirected, transformed into additional network complexity. What the Krelnak didn't understand was that this wasn't just a technological attack. It was a fundamental reimagining of systemic interaction. Hunting collectives that had operated with machine-like precision for generations suddenly found their communication channels flooding with perspectives from species they had previously considered nothing more than resource pools. Strategic information became a collaborative process rather than a top-down directive. The methane-breathing resistance strategist watched in awe as entire governmental systems began to collapse, not through violent overthrow, but through a systematic deconstruction of their fundamental operational principles. "We are rewriting the very definition of governance," Alina explained, her hands dancing across quantum interfaces that seemed to breathe with living potential. "Survival is no longer about domination. It's about adaptive collaboration." When the first true moment of transformation arrived, it was almost anticlimactic. The realm's most powerful technological networks simply reconfigured. Hierarchies dissolved. Communication became multidirectional. Species that had been enemies for generations found themselves suddenly capable of understanding each other's fundamental survival needs. The Krelnak's rigid structure crumbled not with explosions, but with a quantum whisper of interconnected potential. Alina Rodriguez, quantum physicist, accidental dimensional traveler, revolutionary, stood at the center of a transformation that would redefine an entire civilization's understanding of existence. The revolution was complete, and it had only just begun. 30 solar cycles after her arrival, the realm was unrecognizable. Where once predatory hierarchies had dominated, now a complex, living network of collaborative survival thrived. Alina Rodriguez, no longer just a displaced human scientist, but the dimensional architect, stood at the center of a civilization's rebirth. The transformation wasn't just technological. It was fundamentally biological, social, and philosophical. Species that had existed in perpetual conflict now shared resource networks, communication channels, and collective problem-solving platforms. The Vexenera, once considered mere energy anomalies, now served as primary communication and energy distribution specialists. Krixtar's silicon-based intelligence had become the computational backbone of a realm-wide adaptive learning system. Even the Krelnak, the once dominant predatory collective, had been fundamentally reimagined. Their biomechanical infrastructure, once a tool of oppression, now served as a complex neural network facilitating interspecies collaboration. Alina's quantum governance protocol had done more than just redistribute power. It had rewritten the fundamental understanding of existence. In a massive crystalline archive chamber, she stood before a holographic representation of the realm's evolutionary trajectory. Krixtar materialized beside her, no longer just an ally, but a true collaborative partner. Observe the systemic transformation. The silicon-based entity communicated through their shared quantum interface. Holographic projections showed the dramatic shift from a realm of isolated, competing species to an interconnected ecosystem of mutual survival. The methane-breathing resistance strategist, now a key diplomatic coordinator, approached with a critical update. What remained of the old Krelnak leadership had been fully integrated into the new collaborative framework, not through violence, but through a systematic deconstruction of their previous hierarchical understanding. "We are no longer separate," the strategist reported. "We are a unified adaptive system." Alina's quantum medallion, the device that had survived her initial dimensional transfer, now served as a symbolic artifact of transformation. Researchers from multiple species studied its intricate quantum resonance properties, a testament to the unexpected potential of cross-species collaboration. Her reputation had become something between scientific legend and philosophical catalyst. Some species revered her as a liberator. Others saw her as a fundamental disruption of their previous existence, but none could ignore the profound change she had brought. The realm's new governance structure was nothing like traditional political systems. It was a living, breathing network of collaborative intelligence. Decisions emerged through complex, quantum-mediated consensus mechanisms. Conflict resolution happened through adaptive problem-solving platforms that considered the holistic needs of multiple species. What had begun as a fight for survival had become a complete societal metamorphosis. During a critical diplomatic gathering, representatives from dozens of species gathered to commemorate the transformation. Elena stood not as a leader, but as a facilitator, the architect who had provided the initial quantum framework that allowed this miraculous evolution. Survival is no longer about individual dominance, she addressed the gathering. It's about collective adaptation. The realm hummed with potential. A civilization reborn. A testament to the transformative power of understanding. The quantum pathway home emerged like a ghostly thread, weaving through the fabric of dimensional space. 40 solar cycles after her unexpected arrival, Elena Rodriguez stood at the precipice of her most critical decision. The quantum medallion, now a relic of transformation, pulsed with potential, revealing a mathematically precise route back to Earth. Her original laboratory, her home planet, her abandoned life, all beckoned from across the dimensional divide. But she was no longer the same person who had been violently displaced. Crixtar materialized beside her, the silicon-based entity's crystalline structure reflecting the complex holographic projections of the dimensional pathway. Your potential remains unresolved. The entity communicated through their shared quantum interface. Return represents both opportunity and loss. The realm she had transformed waited in collective anticipation. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the massive crystalline communication hub, a living testament to the civilization she had reshaped. The Vexnera's energy matrices flickered with emotional resonance. The methane-breathing diplomatic coordinators stood in reverent silence. Elena's hands moved across quantum interface panels, mapping the potential trajectories of her return. Each calculation revealed multiple potential futures, not just for herself, but for two entire civilizations. Returning to Earth meant bringing back revolutionary knowledge that could fundamentally transform human understanding of quantum mechanics, interdimensional communication, and collective intelligence. But it also meant leaving behind a civilization she had nurtured from the brink of destruction. The quantum pathway was a mathematical marvel, a perfectly calculated route that respected the complex quantum entanglement principles she had spent her entire career studying. It promised a clean, precise transfer back to her original dimensional plane. You have rewritten an entire civilization's understanding of existence, the resistance strategist reminded her. Your potential extends beyond a single dimensional context. Her scientific mind mapped the implications. Returning to Earth meant introducing technologies and philosophical frameworks that would dramatically accelerate human potential. The quantum governance protocols, the interspecies communication systems, the adaptive learning networks, all could revolutionize human civilization. But staying meant continuing to guide the realm's ongoing transformation. There were still complex systemic challenges, still evolutionary potential to be unlocked. The quantum medallion pulsed with a final, definitive resonance. Elena Rodriguez understood something profound in that moment. Her displacement was never an accident. It was an opportunity, a quantum-level invitation to demonstrate the true potential of scientific understanding, of collaborative intelligence. Her choice would not just impact one civilization. It would reshape the understanding of existence itself. As the dimensional pathway shimmered with mathematical precision, Elena made her decision. Not a return, not an abandonment, but a bridge. A quantum connection that would forever link two civilizations, two understandings of potential. The realm held its collective breath. The future, in all its infinite complexity, waited.